Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, taking on a fun and exciting video for you guys today because we're talking about the MiSTer FPGA Sega Saturn core. More specifically, if you have not been going onto Discord and grabbing the most recent unstable nightly builds of this core and you're working on the last update all core, then you are months and months behind all of the progress we've been talking about on the channel for basically all of summer and into fall of 2025. But the good news is, as of yesterday late in the afternoon, SRG320 updated the core in Update All. So all the fixes, all the improvements, and all of everything else you've been seeing me talk about on the channel are now going to be available to you if you just run that Update All script. And by my very unscientific testing methodology asking you whether or not you install unstable cores to MiSTer, basically I would say 99 out of 100 commenters say they just wait for Update All, which means this is going to be one of the biggest updates to your MiSTer FPGA build in 2025 because there's been so many improvements to Sega Saturn since the Update All core was actually added to earlier this year. And that's kind of the thing that SRG320 does. They post a ton of test cores on MiSTer FPGA on the unstable nightly portion that basically have hotfixes and other bug glitch issues that they have resolved, because we get a core basically for every single thing that has been cleaned up. So I would say since the last time you had an Update All core, we're probably on Sega Saturn core 40 or 50 at this point in time as far as the updates are concerned. But that is the nice thing about this hitting Update All. Every single issue that has been fixed in those dozens upon dozens of test cores are going to be included in this one, not only on the Sega Saturn side of things, but STV as well. And I'll go over some of the improvement notes in just a moment. A lot of them are going to basically be Greek to you, but I'll try to explain them in casual conversation. But the best thing is Sega Saturn is marching on, and it really feels like it's a 99.89% complete core at this point in time. And I really hope it hits 100%, because that means SRG320 can then continue on with the 3DO FPGA core. And before you ask, no, there's been no updates. There is no test core. Trust me, the day that comes out, you'll be hearing about it on this channel, because you know I love 3DO and you know I love MiSTer FPGA, so putting them together would absolutely be a match made in heaven as far as I'm concerned. I honestly cannot wait for that day. Now, going over the patch notes, these are from Patreon, but they will show up in the GitHub as well, so it's not really sharing any information that I shouldn't. You're going to see a ton of different commits here. Some are for VDP1 and VDP2, others are going to be on the CPU side of things, the Hitachi SH2. Some of them are even going to be for the STV or Sega Titan video platform, which is just a Sega Saturn with a JAMA Edge that uses cartridges, not discs. And Batman was one of the games that was mentioned, and one that we talked about probably in spring having issues, and those got patched up that I talked about in a video. And that's kind of how cumulative all of these improvements are. Some of the things that have been fixed for 6 months on the unstable nightly core side of things, you're now going to see an Update All. But I will run that unscientific poll again. Leave me a comment down below and you tell me, do you install any sort of test cores, or do you just wait for them to come to Update All? And you'll see here there's a lot of different tests as well, that SCU test and the VDP2 test. Some of these things are just synthetic fixes that are going to aid to improve things, but on something like Shinobi Legions, we're going to have improvements as well. Now, honestly, this is not going to be a 100% perfect core at this point in time. It is still under active development, but for the most part, you can just pick any Sega Saturn game out there and play it from start to finish with absolutely no issues. Now, like everything in life though, that is not a 100% guarantee that you're not going to be the first person to find an issue 30 hours into some really long game, but definitely give this a shot now. Go and get that Update All, and you'll be having the best Sega Saturn experience you can have outside of real hardware, and in some ways with the HDMI out, an even better experience. And I know I like to say this on pretty much every video, but as far as MiSTer FPGA is concerned versus Sega Saturn RGB, both are spectacular. And now if you just basically put Shinobi Legion side by side, you would be hard pressed outside of a little bit of a color difference. That's because one's on HDMI and the other's on RGB. Just because Saturn really doesn't have an HDMI mod, you could just play these games and really not realize that you're playing one source or the other, which is always the end goal of FPGA cores. You want to blur the line between playing on real hardware and an FPGA core recreation. And if you take a look at some of the other tests here that have been basically buttoned up, that's when we talk about the accuracy in passing all those tests. But again, remember, this also includes the Sega Titan video video core, because that is just basically still a Sega Saturn with a different means of delivery and a different control input. And we've seen a ton of improvements on the STV side in 2025. Basically, we started the year with none of these games working, and now basically everything does. But again, if you haven't run update all, if you haven't installed those test cores, you're not going to be really seeing any of these improvements, but you will be today. And don't forget, STV is going to be different, even though it runs basically the exact same way. But we're going to move into soundtrack sample 1, just because why not have some fun Sega Titan video music. I'll come back, talk more about the improvements and why you have to run update all right now. I mean, Sega Titan video performance is so good that just recently, about a month and a half ago, I sold my STV board as well as the rack sound system subboard and a few of my games, just because I was using nothing but MiSTer FPGA if I wanted to play them. And that really is a testament to how good this core has become, because I don't often sell arcade boards unless they have basically a complementary FPGA core that does the exact same job. It just keeps me from having to wire up my super gun, get my arcade sticks out, and get everything ready to play if I can just load it up on MiSTer FPGA and plug an arcade stick in that way. And even if I do still have a metric crap ton of arcade boards in the closet, I am narrowing them down to just things that do not emulate whatsoever and things that don't have FPGA cores. But I felt confident just basically saying the Sega Titan video core was good enough for me not to have to worry about taking that board out of the closet at any point in time and running it again. And that definitely is at least my seal of approval as to how far this core has come. Now, there are going to still be a few slowdowns on single RAM, where the dual core RAM is going to basically be a little bit faster, but you're still going to have that speed up on the single sticks of RAM, and it's one of those things, it's probably going to always be like that. Now, maybe on a perspective MiSTer 2, some of those latency issues could be addressed, because that's what we saw on N64, and that's what we're seeing on Sega Saturn, just a little bit of a bandwidth issue. So if the DE25 Nano becomes a MiSTer Pro or a MiSTer 2, or there is another board in the future, those tiny little edge cases could be fixed up, where you need to have dual RAM to make sure everything runs exactly correctly. And it is one of those things you can upgrade to dual RAM pretty easily unless you're using analog, and then maybe you do a secondary build for MiSTer FPGA, because now that MiSTer Pi triple stacks are well under $200, you really can make that second MiSTer system and go dual RAM if you want. And if you don't use the analog out whatsoever, then it's definitely a situation where I recommend dual RAM now, just because if you don't need that CRT hookup, there really isn't any reason to have it on top of your MiSTer stack. Or even games like Afterburner here, long problematic on MiSTer FPGA, just down to something that Sega did with the code, now work 100% perfectly when you play them. It used to be that this wouldn't even load up whatsoever, then it would have corrupted audio from my memory, and now it both looks, sounds, and plays amazingly. Soundtrack sample 2, 35 seconds, and I'll be right back with more. I mean, hey, it just seems like Afterburner to me, or something like Nights into Dreams. Again, the point of this cord now, when I talk about it, is you can just sit down and start playing games. You don't really need to think about the fact that it's in active development. You don't need to think about the fact that it's not done. For like 99 out of 100 games, you would tell no difference whatsoever between the FPGA core and real Sega Saturn hardware. And I'm sure SRG320 will still get that 1% done, but they felt that it was basically far enough along where they could hit update all up one more time to make sure you all get with these most recent updates. So trust me, if you haven't actually played any of the test cores, this is definitely going to be one of the biggest improvements to Sega Saturn FPGA recreation that you're going to see this year. So go ahead and run update all and leave me a comment down below and tell me what games you've been playing on the Sega Saturn core, because I would be curious. Bubble Symphony is always one that I love on Sega Saturn, because it's basically the only time the game ever got a home port on an individualized release. And because it is Halloween and we should talk about some horror gaming just for fun, you can also run the Sega Saturn version of Crypt Killer on the core. I'm not sure why you'd want to play that game. It's completely janky in all of the best and fun ways, but also mechanically a little bit stupid, but it is another game that runs. So basically just take a look at whatever Sega Saturn game you want to play, run update all and start playing it on MiSTer FPGA, and I can basically almost guarantee you're not even going to notice that you're not running a real Sega Saturn. And next time the core updates, the more fundamental things, I'll definitely do a video. I know I haven't mentioned all the updates, but that's just because more stuff's been going on. But go run update all, play some Saturn, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.